Welcome to another installment of Monday Q&A. I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend full of filthy, greasy guitar noises. As always, if you have a question you would like me to answer on next week's video, simply put it in the comments section below and I will do my best to get to it. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, there are some links in the video description you can follow to support what I do here on the channel. Keep the lights on, keep the cats happy and fed. There's my Patreon. There's the music that I make with Ragdoll. We have a brand new single out called Sky's Limit and a video, which I'll try to remember to link at the end of this video. You can also come and join the Discord server, grab some free IRs, or use the affiliate links in the video description. Alrighty, let's tear into some of this week's questions. While I'm busy tooting my own horn, a bunch of people asked about the new Ragdoll single Sky's Limit and the guitar tone on there. Was it a real amp or was it the Axe FX? I used my Axe FX for that one. From memory, it's the Recto 1 Red model with my free V30 IR that is linked in the video description. Friend of the channel and the Gear podcast co-host Troy Nababan and I spent a bit of time on that one, just kind of dialing in the model where we would have dialed in my old dual rectifier, which I used on Back to Zero. Back to Zero was mostly dual rectifier boosted with a clon paired up with another boosted amp, and quad tracked. Sky's Limit is just a pair of doubles with the Recto 1 Red. There's probably a boost in front of it. I can't remember which one. It's probably either like the grinder boost or the CC boost. They both sound really, really good, and I'll have to do a video revisiting that tone because it works really well for that particular song, being in that kind of like 90, 100 BPM-ish. I feel like you can get away with a slightly sludgier, thicker tone on there. So that's why we went with the Recto. But I do need to do a video breaking down that song on how to play it and also how to put together the guitar tone. That one is coming soon. What genres do I enjoy listening to when I'm not listening to rock music? I think now I predominantly listen to non-rock music most of the time that I'm listening for pleasure. I do spend a lot of time listening to rock music here in the studio and referencing things and trying to kind of deconstruct and pick apart tones. It's something that I just like doing, but I listen to lots and lots of stuff. If you're familiar with the videos I put out a lot of the time, you'll hear, you know, some kind of more progressive stuff on there. And I mean progressive as in like 70s, 80s prog, even kind of Floydy atmospheric stuff. I do really like new retro wave and synth wave stuff out there, you know, bands like The Midnight and FM84, which are amazing. To me, they're kind of rock and metal bands with just big, juicy sounding synthesizers instead of guitars. I've been listening to the Caroline Palachek, I think that's how you say her name, album, which came out this year. That was sort of the thing I was listening to on our recent trip to Melbourne. I've really been enjoying some of the textures on there. Just vocal music. You know, I like listening to singers. I like listening to lead instruments that aren't the guitar and then trying to copy that. That's something I remember reading an interview with Neil Schon. So I do listen to a lot of blues. I like kind of ambient music. I like some modern pop. You know, I like stuff that's got melody and atmosphere. I do like some really extreme metal as well. Like I've been listening to Carbomb and Meshuggah a little bit the last couple of weeks as well. So, you know, I think a lot of people probably just pigeonhole my taste as, oh, look at him. He's a guy with long hair. He's stuck in the late 80s and early 90s. But, you know, I just like music. Music's a pretty nice thing. And I think I'm more into the elements of music where it's stuff that kind of makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Anything that does that, I'm going to be into. Also, a lot of soundtracks, like all the Studio Ghibli movies. Joe Hisaishi, I love his composing. Video game music as well is just incredible at the moment. So, yeah, good music. Let's chalk it up to that. Do I have any experience with Maton acoustic guitars? Anybody familiar with Australian guitars would be very familiar with Maton. They're basically... Are they the Gibson of Australia? Are they the Fender of Australia? They've been making guitars for a long time. And I owned a gorgeous Maton 808, very similar to the one Tommy Emmanuel plays. That was my first nice acoustic guitar that I bought for myself in probably 12, 13 years ago. That got stolen from my car. It was parked in my girlfriend's driveway. And I thought, it's in the driveway. It's a pretty quiet suburb. Nobody's going to grab the guitar. Big mistake. Don't leave your gear in your car. I really missed that guitar, but I ended up buying a Cole Clark acoustic. From memory, Cole Clark are some ex-Maton employees, and they do some amazing work. I love the pickup system they have in there. I think the Cole Clark pickup system is my favorite onboard acoustic guitar system. I've got stuff with Fishman's, I've got the Maton stuff, or I've tried the Maton stuff, but the Cole Clark, if you just want to plug your acoustic guitar into a PA and do a gig, it's the way to go. So I should probably do a video about that guitar because it's pretty beaten up now, but it's still going. So the Maton stuff, in terms of acoustics, they make really, really lovely stuff. I had a friend who had a 12-string Maton Messiah, which is easily one of the nicest acoustic guitars I've ever played in my life. But Maton, Cole Clark, there's some other smaller Australian builders doing some really, really cool stuff. So maybe I should do an acoustic episode here on the channel at some point. Let me know what you'd like to hear. My thoughts on the Blackstar Amped series, and is that a form factor I would consider gigging? I've done videos with the whole Amped series at this point, so you can go and watch my videos on there. I really like the form factor. I wasn't super sold on having, the amplifier section in the pedal thing until I tried it, and they're so compact and they're so kind of flexible in the way you want to use them with the extra power outs and the routing options on there that, if I was somebody who still wanted to gig through a cab and I didn't need all the extra stuff something like an FM3 gives me, if I just wanted a basic amp tone and I didn't want to haul around an amp, that's definitely something I would look at. I think it's a really cool form factor they've arrived at. I also want to try the blue guitar stuff. I haven't had a chance to check that out, but I've heard really, really good things. Big fan of Uge Valaverta. I hope I said that right. I definitely didn't say it right, so I apologize. But I've watched a video where they were talking about the upcoming blue guitar thing that they're putting out and how they'd taken his, bad boy JCM 800 and recreated that. So I'm very curious to try one of those because that amp, every clip I hear of it sounds amazing. And that's an amazing YouTube channel as well. And you can check out our little Insensitive Sundays jam that we did a little over a year ago. Getting the TC 1210 sound in a pedal. I still haven't tried a 1210. It is definitely up there in terms of holy grail rack pieces, along with, the tri-chorus and a few other little bits and pieces I've been trying to track down. But honestly, just get the TC Electronic SCF. Get two of them if you want that. If you just kind of want the chorus or the flanger sound out of the 1210. A lot of the videos and clips I've heard with the 1210, they're just kind of using it like a glorified SCF in a rack. I know that the 1210 does some stuff that the SCF doesn't, but the SCF, it's a great sounding chorus pedal. I got one from 1982 or 1983 recently in really, really good condition, and it's definitely got its own thing going on in terms of chorusing. It just has that really subtle, wide, hi-fi TC thing. I guess if you wanted a 1210 style chorus, the 2290 does a pretty sweet chorus out of it as well. So you've got stuff that's vaguely 2290-ish in a pedal nowadays. So, you could get one of those kind of pedals that's aiming to recreate digital delays and use it as a glorified chorus pedal. That would be one way to do it. That's the hard way to do it. I would say just get an SCF pedal, either an old one, or I know they've just reissued them. What is it? The SCF Gold. I still need to try one. And while we're talking about gear, and especially new gear, I know you're all dying to know what I think about that PRS Myles Kennedy PRS take on a telly. I think like a lot of people, I sort of saw that and went, really? There's just this like uncanny valley thing happening with the Telecaster shape and the PRS headstock. But the more I looked at it and the more clips that I listened to and the design of the pickups and a few other things, I think I'm coming around to it. It's going to be a very expensive telly, but if you wanted a custom shop telly with similar specs, you're probably going to pay a similar amount of money nowadays. The other thing that came to mind, and my take on that guitar, is that it's not a PRS for telly players. They're not trying to convert Telecaster players to play PRS. It's a telly for people who already like PRS guitars. Kind of like the Silver Sky thing. It's like if you like the things a PRS does and you like your custom 24, but you want a traditional Strat, you probably get one of those and you're going to feel home. I feel the same way about the Myles Kennedy model and the new NF model that they're making. It's not something that I've played yet. I really want to try one and put all of my preconceptions to the test, but it really seems like they're sort of going, hey, have you got a custom 24 or a DGT, but you just need a Telecaster for a particular gig or a sort of different set of sounds, then it seems like they're trying to hit that. But as always, I want to know from you, what are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you looked at and, like me, you were a little bit confused that they would want to do something like that? Have you come around to it? Or was it one of those things where you saw it and went, finally, they're making the guitar that I want. I'm just going to buy one of those. Let me know in the comments. This question popped up on the recent vlog video that I did. I was in Melbourne a little over a week ago. We played a show over there as part of a launch for our new single. Someone wanted to know what gigs like that pay and how we actually go about affording to tour in that context. So first up, that trip cost us money because airfares in Australia are expensive. Hotels are expensive. Uber rides and food are expensive. It's just something that is going to happen. The cost of actually going over there versus what we got paid, and we got paid pretty well for an original show with that one, but it still didn't offset the cost of flying 3 people across the country. So how are we doing this? Well, we do a lot of other gigs. We do corporate shows, we do cover shows, we go and play in the regions here, especially in Western Australia. And we've been doing that since we started the band. And when we started the band, we kind of had this idea. It's like, hey, we're doing these gigs. Why don't we pool the money that we're making from these gigs, a lot of which pay really, really well, whether we're playing our music or somebody else's music, let's pool all that money together. And then let's use that money for when times come up where we get the opportunity to play a really good gig interstate or overseas. So we've done 5 US tours and a tour of Europe. I've never had to put my hand in my pocket because of that. The band has essentially been self-sustaining. We've worked really hard and we've played a lot of gigs over here, but that has been offset by the fact that we can actually pay for all our own music that we make and then pay to go and promote it and tour it and build a fan base without having to rely on a label or a distributor or, an external publisher. We own all of our own intellectual property that way. We have control over what we want to do and the music that we want to make and when we do it. We're not beholden to anybody else. The flip side of that is that, when you do a trip like that, it's going to cost you money, but we don't worry about the cost. It's more about the experience. It's more about trying to find new fans. It's about going out and playing the music that we love to make. That's the whole point there. It's probably not a super sustainable model. I don't think we could just go and play our original music and make a living out of it. The last tour of the US we did, we actually broke even, and that was my long-term goal. Like, if we can eventually do this and break even, especially in today's market with music, then that is the dream. So that's how we go about doing it with Ragdoll. I know other bands go about it differently. We've played with bands who are in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to their record label and all the touring that they have to do once they've done all the fun stuff like record and, book shows. All that money goes straight back to the label and doesn't go to them at all. So we've been doing this long enough now where this kind of model works for us and it's satisfying. Am I going to be somebody who's selling out stadiums anytime soon? Definitely not. Is it satisfying and is it a way I like to spend my time on earth? 100%, because I like making music. I particularly like making my own music as sort of part of that big picture. But that's kind of how we do it. So if you've got any other questions about that, let me know. This is a good one. Some gear misconceptions that I had when I was a beginner or intermediate player. The example used in the question was, PRS don't do guitars with ebony, so you'll never play a PRS. Oh, I've got so many misconceptions which have been busted over time. I think the biggest one is probably boogies. Early on, I tried out a Mark Series amp in a guitar shop, didn't know how to dial it in. Boogies suck. Why would anybody like this? Same thing with the rectifier. Played one as backline once, had a bad time with it, just didn't get it. Rectos suck. I came around on those eventually, especially with the rectos, because a boosted recto is the amp on our Back to Zero album doing the majority of the heavy lifting. So there's that. I think Floyd Rose's, I kind of went off. I thought, you got to have a Floyd Rose on there because it's more versatile and there's the tuning stability. Whereas now I'm just like, just give me a fixed bridge and I don't know, I'll start a note a semitone lower and pre-bend it if I want some wiggle in it. Some other ones as well. Definitely the digital modeling thing. I came around on that. Like, why would anyone want to use this when you can just use a real amp? Well, we all know how I feel about that nowadays. So picks as well. For a while I was using, I think I started out learning with those big stubby picks, and then, went thicker, got some of these Wagon picks, which were handmade out of bone, and they're like 5 mil. Obviously, if it's a thicker pick, you get a thicker tone, bro. Lots of stuff like that. There's just so many gear misconceptions as it is. We all have our own quirks. I'm probably still riddled with gear misconceptions at the moment. So, as always, you got to let me know what's the biggest turnaround all of you have had. Was it something where you're like, oh, never play a Marshall, and now you only play Marshalls, or something kind of like string gauge or picks, or all the minutia that we spend time on when we play guitar. Tips for practicing when you have a mismatch between your speed and accuracy when you're descending versus ascending. If you haven't checked out Troy Grady's amazing Cracking the Code material, go and do that. I like that Troy focuses on mechanics rather than, oh, here's a lick, just start slow and play it fast. And you can see things where Troy's analyzing Michelangelo's playing or Andy Wood's playing, or looking at bluegrass players like Molly Tuttle. The Molly Tuttle video, by the way, is just one of the most amazing things I have ever seen as well. And, Troy's got the magnet and the super slow-mo stuff on there. So the mechanics aspect of it, I feel like I've been able to play guitar fast probably since I was about 16 or 17. There's videos of me at school concerts doing Paul Gilbert licks and, probably playing them 85, 90% as fast as I can play them now. But I can play them so much more effortlessly now after kind of going down that rabbit hole, if you want to call it, where I watched a bunch of Troy's stuff and it made me think about my playing differently, and it made me think about what goes into practicing differently, and it helped me iron out a few kinks in my technique. And a few people mentioned on a video a while ago that they'd like to see some Troy Grady style breakdown of especially my right hand, because people are like, you don't move your right hand, what's going on there? And again, it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything special. It's focusing on efficiency and economy, but I think that's because I've had to go through this process of doing it the hard way, so to speak. So check out Troy's stuff and the mechanics of string crossing in particular. If you're ascending versus descending, and your escape motion with your upstroke, and whether you're pick slanting up or down, might be a pretty good system to consider. So yeah, as always with this stuff, I will just defer to the master and Cracking the Code. Cool old pickups like the Damasio Super Distortion. There is a Damasio Super Distortion lurking in a box somewhere here. I had it in an old guitar. I pulled it out, and I don't know what's happened to it. So I might have to try and find that one and just pop it in a guitar, run it into a JTM 45 or some other non-master volume Marshall, and just kind of recreate that late 70s thing before amps all had master volumes and gobloads of gain. I think nowadays I gravitate towards the more vintage output stuff. The PRS DGT pickups sound amazing. The Duncan Seth Lovers and like the 78 might be about as hot as I go these days, just because, we have an infinite number of ways to shape the gain on stuff like digital modelers and amps nowadays. But yeah, I'm kind of curious about the Super Distortion again. And I remember trying it in that guitar, and again, your memory of sound is not good. So I'm happy to prove myself wrong on this if need be, but kind of had that like Cocteau mid-range thing where it was very hot, very MIDI, clearly designed to hit the front end of an amp and just push it into natural overdrive a little bit more. Last one for this week, the camera and mic that I'm using. You can see this is an SM7. I just got a boom stand for this. I actually got a brand new desk, and I've kind of changed my setup here quite a lot, which I will do a video about very soon. And I'm still using the Canon EOS M50. I've got the 22mm kit lens on there. I've actually got two of them. So the other one isn't set up at the moment, but I've done it for some pedal videos. And I have one that I just kind of take with me to gigs so I can film stuff and do things like my vlogs, but I have one which just kind of sits on my desk, which is pointing at my face right now. I've got some lights that I got off like AliExpress or something like that for the kind of purple wash back here. I've got a softbox over there, and I've actually got the window open over there, which hasn't happened before. So I might be like a little bit overexposed on today's video, but yeah, kind of changing the setup a little bit. I'll do a 2023 edition of my YouTube video making rig. I've done previous editions of that where not much has changed. It's basically like microphone goes into a UA Apollo. I think I've got the Neve preamp and a distressor plugin on there. That goes into Pro Tools. I've got a little bit of isotope voice denoise because this room's kind of got a lot of ambient noise in it. There's an aircon. I'm on a corner. There's birds outside and things like that. And yeah, the camera, basically, I don't do too much to. I just kind of pop that one into DaVinci Resolve and go. That is it for this week's video. Go forth and have a great week and make some filthy guitar noises. If you've got questions for next week, let me know in the comments section below. And to everybody who supports the channel, whether it's liking or sharing videos, to my amazing patrons, and to everybody who has taken the time to check out some ragdoll music, I massively appreciate it. I will see you all next time. Take it easy.